Hello everyone and welcome to another Starcraft 2 video. For this one I'm going to do a build order tutorial on how to Planetary Fortress rush Protoss with a really good win rate. I play mech versus Protoss, so my win rate's always been under 50%. This is in years the first build I've had that's been above 50% win rate. And yeah, I'm playing at Diamond 1 level, and all my opponents in this video will be Diamond 1 or Masters 3 on the EU server. So it should be able to pull off at any MMR, I would suspect. It's not too micro intensive. It's not as strong versus one base cheese from Protoss. So obviously if they're expanding, it's better, but that doesn't mean you will lose against cheese. So let's go ahead and pop right into it. So before I get into the build order, I kind of want to go over what it looks like from the Protoss perspective and why it can be quite powerful. Okay, this guy likes to spam his opening hotkeys. So it looks like it's going to be a gateway scout. So he posts on the gateway and goes scouting. There's the gas. Approaching my base, sees a depot outside of my main, and then nothing else. And then he tries to mineral lock through the mineral line and gets himself caught. So that looks pretty suspicious. So he's immediately going to throw down a second factory. And the probe I think that was meant to expand with is going to go scouting for proxies. Cybercore finishes and he immediately starts an adept. He does catch the barracks, so he sees it floating into his main base. Land that. I'm going to try to peel Marines behind his mineral line, but I don't know that he has this nice little Sim City that's preventing that from happening. So the first adept's doing well against that. Should be able to catch any Marine, the Reaper that pops out. And now there's a second Reaper, and a Stalker even comes out now. And I'm going to stop the game here just to show you the effect of this, because I bet a good percentage of you missed this as well. What is actually going on right now? If you take a look at the mini-map, you can probably catch a good wind of that. So you can see that the PF is up there with a nice little wall off to prevent a probe surround. And there'll be a couple SCVs in the area to repair if necessary. So that is how this PF rush functions from the point of view of the opponents. So let's start this again, and let's actually go over the build order. So starting at home, we're just going to open as per standard with a depot. You can put the depot on the wall. This allows you to wall off earlier, and it's better versus all-ins. The other option is to put a depot at the natural ramp, and that's because there's certain ways you can help sell the story of a fast expand. And it's really minor, but I think it gets into the head of Protoss players where they see, like, oh, if you're walling off here, you must probably be planning to expand here. So either option is fine. But either way, this SCV that's building the depot is going to go build a command center next. And for the command center, you kind of want to place it somewhere. You want it close to his natural choke point. Close-ish. But at the same time, not somewhere that would be easily scouted. It's not on the main path between your two bases. Things like Reapers will probably be proxied from around the third base. Or sorry, Marines and Marauders would be proxied from the third base. Reapers would probably be proxied close to this jump point. Factory or Starport will probably be behind his main base somewhere. So you kind of want to avoid those places. But at the same time, get as close as possible to this. So on this map, I like to build my command center here. And soon after this depot finishes, you also want to send out another SCV to build a barracks. And that's you kind of want it to arrive close to his base and build a barracks at 150. Especially if this SCV spots his probe, what you want to do is send another SCV to your natural. And as this probe is entering your base, you throw down an Inge Bay, just as it's leaving vision, which can trick him on the minimap. And then when his probe comes into your base, you try to kill it. And honestly, this is something I haven't done since like Wings of Liberty, because it usually just messes up your own mining, but I can get the kill so often. I guess people just don't try this kill anymore, so it works a lot. Either they mineral lock through your mineral line, in which case if you pull enough SCVs, you can still get the kill even though it's mineral locking. Or they'll queue a path behind your mineral line, in which case they're probably not going to be watching the probe too closely. So you can like pull like 6 SCVs down here to intercept the probe that's coming this way, and you just get a nice little surround and kill it off. Obviously, as you go higher in MMR, this is less likely to work, so you may not want to try this in Grandmaster League, but in lower league, I'm sure you'll probably get the kill very often. So yeah, if you're showing a depot at the wall, a structure at your natural, and then you kill off the probe, that can kind of sell a fast expand. But either way, it doesn't matter. Like in this case, I didn't get to fake the Inge base, so he's very suspicious about what's going on. But even if he's suspicious, it's not that bad. Because honestly, it can force him to do things like maybe build a shield battery in his main base, which is a complete waste of minerals versus this build. So, yeah, I don't really mind. After you throw down this barracks, you want to throw down double gas. One note about this barracks, though, that's kind of important. You want to create a wall with this barracks. In this case, I'm creating a wall with this gas geyser. Like for instance, like right here would be a bad place to put the barracks, but like right here would be a good place because that creates a big wall with these mineral patches. And why is that important? The probe might end up finding this SCV. And if it does, like say you found the SCV right now, I have this area right here where the SCV is completely safe. If it pops over here and the probe's over here, I just reattach it to the barracks until it pops to this side. Probe has to walk all the way around, and then I can pop it back over to this side, and probe has to walk all the way around. Basically what it means is if you create a nice little wall with a gas geyser or minerals, you're very likely to be able to dance this SCV and complete the barracks. If it's cut super early on, you can just cancel it and build your barracks at home. It's not the end of the world, but this barracks, as we saw, is kind of key at distracting your opponent, as it really makes the, you know, that demonetized word magnet that is so handy. In fact, this is what really bumped my win rate up a lot with this build, because the big key is it pulls his gateway units into his main base. If his gateway units are anywhere close to your barracks or to your command center, and he's watching it and then he prevents it from landing, then it can get kind of messy. As longer it takes to land the command center, the tougher it is to pull off the PF rush. Yeah, so anyways, it's going to be command center, and then barracks, and then double gas, and then engineering bay. I like to, this SCV that builds engineering bay, I like to leave him right here, typically, because he's going to be building the factory after the barracks finishes. I want to put 3 on each gas immediately. As soon as the barracks finishes, we're going to float it into his main, and we're going to build an orbital command, and then when this engine bay finishes, we're going to build a factory. At the same time, we're going to be floating this command center, like soon after the barracks. Barracks queues up Marines. Those 2 SCVs that are proxying, you kind of want to keep them nearby. And you're going to wall off the planetary, and this is kind of important. Sometimes you can do just 1 engine bay, sometimes you need 2 structures. In this case, I need 2. And this is important because if he pulls probes, he can kill a command center faster than the PF will finish. So by doing it this way, not only am I limiting a surface area to maybe, I don't know, whatever that is, 10 probes, but it also means I can probably do some repair on the far side. Even if he has a stalker, you know, it takes a few shots to kill an SCV, so you can repair a little bit, pull back here, repair each other, come back in, repair a little bit, same idea. But honestly, you don't even need to do that repair. You can just wait for the PF to finish without a massive probe surround. It's going to get up. Factory finishes. This is where it's nice if I had the depot here. Would have completely walled him out. He does get to scout. And then you're going to start building cyclones from that factory. You also want to build a starport immediately, which I haven't done, because there's a lot going on and I'm a very mechanically slow player. And you want to expand as soon as you get 400 minerals. Yeah, very late on the starport. Yeah, you want to be producing more SCVs from here. That's for repair. Keep in mind that SCVs, while they're inside the command center with auto repair turned on, they can actually repair each other inside the planetary. So as long as you have multiple SCVs, you can keep popping them into the PF and refilling them back to full. Yeah, Nexus does go down. Sometimes it takes a long time to kill a Nexus because each overcharge can actually recharge 1,000 shields on the Nexus, like all 1,000 shields, so quite good. So just finishing these up, and then I'm going to rally here, or patrol here to see if I can catch a Warp Prism. So I did know he was on Robotech. It was a little too late, he did get out, but we supply blocked him a little bit, so slowing his attack. And honestly, by this point, we already have the Planetary at the natural. This is actually important. Counterattacks can come hard, so you want to survive. Just one missile turret to cover the ramp and the PF, which is good in case it's some sort of DT thing. And then the Banshees are on the way. They are super late this game. I probably should already have 2 Banshees out, but whatever. The Banshee is actually really key. I'm going to save that for another video, but Mass Banshee is actually crazy strong versus Protoss, even though it's never used in the on the ladder or pro scene. But we'll have a video on that in the future. And yeah, he just kind of gave up at that point. He's stuck on one base. His prism is not going to do too well. And he killed maybe a couple SCVs, but not the end of the world. If the Nexus goes down, I like to pull the most of my SCVs, maybe except one, back into mining. Yeah, because the role of this PF doesn't really matter too much. It's kind of to kill his natural if it exists, or to keep him on one base as long as possible as I go up to 2. Just to keep, even economically at par is fine with Mass Banshee, because it's so strong, but in this case well ahead. This proxy racks can do little things, like I'm kind of blocking his future expansions with the tech lab. But yeah, with that, let's hop into another replay. Okay, so here we are on Solaris versus a Master League Protoss opponent. And we'll speed up a bit at the start. So once again, Depot, that SCV gets sent out to build the command center. In this case, I find like here is a pretty good spot for the CC. Second SCV coming out. I did spot him coming by. You see I throw down the Inge Bay just as he's entering my base. That way his vision is sees the structure on the minimap. And then the goal is if I can kill off this probe. That's the best way to sell it. He didn't actually come near my mineral line, so I didn't get to do that. So he's going to be suspicious as he sees nothing here. And he starts scouting around. He's going to find the barracks. And this is why I like to have that spot where you can dance the SCV. Now it's even safe right there. He did finish it off. Getting that into his main base. Unfortunately, he actually did spot my command center, so this is going to be super awkward. He's going to prevent the landing for a little bit. Yeah, and like every second really counts. I get this down. Obviously, I don't have the wall, so I'm 100% dead if he pulls his probes. But luckily, he does not pull his probes. He just fights with one probe and the Stalker and Adept. I did pull a whole bunch of SCVs just because I was concerned that this is going to die really quickly. I pulled a bunch of SCVs, I mean. But I can send some of them back home now as we did finish this up. The barracks, I think I even got some probe kills in his main. Am I lying? Yep, I got 4 probe kills, so that's pretty good. And he did block my natural with the Nest probe, which I think I killed up here as I chased him all over. But he blocked my natural for a little bit. But more or less the same thing's going on here. I'm transitioning into Starport, Command Center, and Cyclones. For how many Cyclones to build, I just keep building them until I'm sure that I got the Nexus down. Is basically the idea. Now, if he builds Immortals and Shield Batteries, it's likely you're not going to be able to kill his natural, but honestly, that's okay. because those are like the two worst things he can do against a mass Banshee transition. Because shield batteries can't kill me, and immortals are not the best thing versus flying units. So, and the weakest thing about trying to go mass Banshee is just the early game, right? So getting past the early game is what this build allows me to do with the Planetary. However, with that said, I've been microing the Cyclones fairly well. And he's a little bit low on... Like, he only built 2 shield batteries, and he's using up the overcharge to regenerate the 1,000 hit points on his Nexus. So these Immortals are a little bit rough. They probably have their barrier back at the moment. And now we're up to 4 Adepts. And they got 2 all of a sudden. We do have a lot of SCVs here, however. And he kind of committed there, and that didn't work out as he ended up losing all of his Immortals. And he GG's out. Those Immortals did buy him time to get a second overcharge, but, you know, he's down to 2 Stalkers, so it's not going to buy him much. But you can see with, just say he broke out with those mass Immortals, and 4 Immortals walk across the map. Well, he's running into Planetary, which isn't the biggest threat, but he's also running into Banshees by the time he arrives, which will be a big threat for him. Not to mention the Cyclones will likely survive in some manner. Yeah, so let's take a quick look at a game where things don't go quite as well, and we'll be right back. Okay, so here we are in Hectate versus an EU Master League Protoss, and let's get the production tab up, speed up a bit. So just to reinforce the build order, it's going to be Depot. Once again, I think I have a couple of spots I like putting the command center on this map, but this is one of them. Building that CC. Did not see the probe come across, unfortunately. Kind of went for the kill, didn't get it. He was on Mineral Walk, so that was probably being overly aggressive. So again, tried to show him the Inge Bay just to kind of mess with him a little bit. Command center is able to float into his main base. One thing too is you don't want to sneak this into his base. Like, say he has no vision right here, don't land it there. You want to land it in his vision. The whole point of this is to distract him. Is he wants, even if he sees the command center floating in, as long as his gateway units are in his main base, which, like, who leaves their gateway units at their natural when there's a barracks in their main base, right? It's almost guaranteed to pull that off. So there we go. For some reason the command center was a little bit late this game, and maybe I supply blocked myself on 12. Sounds like something I would do. Here we go, landing the CC, creating the little wall off. Using that wall to keep the SCVs alive, which is nice. Looks like he's not going to attempt to pull probes. I did see a Stargate, so I decided to get a missile turret just in case. You never know if a Void Ray comes over here. I do have Cyclones on the way, but sometimes you lose a Cyclone to a Void Ray, so just to be safe, we get the missile turret. In case of some sort of DT attempt to break out too, it's nice versus that. So again, the follow-up to building the command center. Starport's kind of late. Like to have a missile turret near the Planetary. So he has Immortals and Void Rays, which is fairly strong here. He's building a whole bunch of shield batteries, really trying to commit to breaking out. Doing what damage we can. Almost got the Void Ray there. Going down to like 10 hit points or something. Did end up losing a Cyclone there. Tries to commit. I think he traded a Void Ray for a Cyclone. Nexus is actually really low at the moment. having to use one of his many shield batteries to heal it back up. Do get a Void Ray down. Nexus getting super low. Oh man. Then he puts overcharge on it, which is kind of OP in this situation, as an extra 1,000 hit points. I actually didn't have a screen pan in a way where I didn't notice he was repairing it, so I started focus firing the Nexus. I'm like, I'm probably going to lose this base, let's just focus the Nexus down, and that didn't work, obviously. But as he comes across the map, we do have a missile tower, we got Planetary, we got a couple Banshees, and I think another Cyclone on the way. I know he's open with Void Rays, but I feel like if you have to choose between Void Ray or Viking, or between Banshee or Viking, you probably want the Banshee. If he's a Mortal Stalker Void Ray. Maybe one Viking just to kind of kite the Void Rays, kind of keep them honest. But when all is said and done, you can see the unit's loss is much higher for me. A lot of it's to do with the repair. He did keep this base alive. Now keep in mind he did spend like 1,000 minerals on, like, how many shield batteries is this? He spent 1,200 minerals on shield batteries, which aren't going to be too useful to him as the game goes on. But even if things are great for him economically, the fact that I was able to get into multiple starports without dying is the most important thing. Because even though Banshees do very well versus Stalkers, heads up, like dollar for dollar, they trade efficiently. Supply per, like, equal supply, they trade efficiently versus Stalkers. But the big difference between Stalkers and Banshees is I have to build a whole bunch of Tech Lab starports, which is a massive infrastructure cost, where he just needs to build gateways, which is like tier 1 minerals only. So just getting to this spot allows me to go into the late game or mid game with this Sky Terran build, which is so powerful. Like I said, Banshees just do very well versus Stalkers. With the speed upgrade, Stalkers can't retreat versus Banshees. You'll just pick them all off. And then of course there's the power of Cloak, which situationally is very strong as well. Looks like he didn't have a detector there, so he decided to get out. As we establish our third base for Protoss is already up, and looks like he's going to be taking a fourth. So staying a little bit ahead economically the whole way. Double upgrades is nice. If he does switch into, say, Stargate units, there's no Stargate unit that's especially good versus Vikings. Phoenix are like even-ish. Carriers can be good if the interceptors are already out before they engage Vikings. But the thing is that the Vikings, the one advantage Vikings will almost certainly have is the upgrade advantage. Since I'm going only air units, I'm just double upgrading air. And, you know, where he's going like ground units and air units, and probably he's not going to get a second cyber core. So I'm just going to have a huge upgrade advantage. I'm kind of having to turtle behind my missile turrets as I was caught off guard by the Phoenix count. I don't have the Vikings deal with that yet. But on the production tab, you can see I'm building Vikings 4 at a time. So it should be good. Also, the upgrades, 2-2 is on the way. Yeah, even though we're playing from behind economically, this is kind of just where I want to be. This is like a really easy army to use. It's basically mostly A movie. The only late game weapon I find that works well for Protoss is Storm. But a lot of Protosses don't even get Storm, and when they do, it's not like it's like you get Storm, you win the game. It's just a good tool. And with that, you do want to micro a little bit. And the micro's pretty easy. Just stutter step your Banshees on top of his units. The Banshees will automatically target the Templar first. And since you're stutter stepping on top of his units, if he does storm, he's storming his own units at the same time. Which is still beneficial for him, but, you know, at least you're getting some counter damage out of it. You continue to make Immortals, which is an odd choice. I mean, it is the only robotics unit that's useful versus this type of Sky Terran, as it can cut through planetaries like butter. Colossus or Disruptors are a complete waste of money. But it's still an odd choice to go that route. As I establish my fifth, I put up a sensor tower over here just so I get a little bit of time. And then I tried to contain him on his 4 or 5 bases. I did notice he's trying just taking his 5th, and that's what you want to attack. And I think this will spell the end of the game here, as it's just going to be a pretty one-sided fight for me. I have the Vikings to deal with his Phoenix now, and I got the 2/2 upgrades, and Banshees just slaughter Stalkers, and yeah, it was just really good for me. Probably looked a little better than it should, just because I think my composition was almost perfect in terms of ratio of Vikings to Banshees. It wasn't like way too many Vikings, but I did have enough to deal with the Phoenix count, so just by fluke I had a nice composition there. The moment you finish his last air unit, what you can do is just scan, and then you'll probably take out whatever observers are in the neighborhood with the Vikings, and then your Banshee's cloak is all of a sudden useful. But again, the cloak is just bonus. You don't need the cloak. These aren't as glass cannony as you would think. Banshees are actually decent versus Stalkers. I mean, a lot of the reason is Stalkers' damage is bonus to armored, and Banshees are actually light. That does mean Banshees get absolutely slaughtered by Phoenix, but Phoenix will automatically shoot prioritize Vikings over Banshees. So as long as you have the Vikings to support your Banshees, and he's not focus firing, which I'm not even sure if that would be a good choice anyways. The Vikings deal with the Banshees. Yeah, that's kind of like a quick overview of my Sky Terran build, but that will be the next video, is a Sky Terran build. I'll show you a build where I used to go directly into Sky Terran rather than this PF rush into Sky Terran. But yeah. Storm can be difficult, but you can micro around it, and it's okay. The bigger issue is, how do you build a bunch of starports in the early game without dying, sort of idea. Like I said, Banshees are good versus Stalkers, but he can have like 13 Stalkers at the time you have 2 Banshees, right? And obviously that's not a winnable fight. So this PF rush is a great way to transition into this, especially as typically the only way they can break the Planetary contain early in the game is with Immortals and Shield batteries. And those are just 2 useless things if they're going to try to finish you off while you're going into Banshee tech. Yeah, so that is about everything. I'll post a link to a spawning tool for this build, so you get the build order if you want to follow along that way. And yeah, thank you everyone for tuning in. I'm out of here. Have a good one.